Okay, it's the end of the week. Time to put a cap on it. Time to step back and think about what this week tells us. It shows the power of image, how a former president can be celebrated while the current one struggles. It shows that accountability still matters in politics, media, and business. And it shows how fragile trust is when misinformation and ego dominate. Now, it shows the stakes for 2026. People are already questioning whether the system will hold. This week isn't just headlines, it's a snapshot of where the country is right now. Check it out. How are you doing this morning? How's the family?
Pretty good. You know, praising God. Very excited about my father said, when I think of God, I thank God, and so I thank God for His life. And I've had 60 years. I can't be selfish. He's touched so many people for so long, and I'm grateful. So I'm glad he's with the ancestors, and our loss is heaven's gain. And thank you, all the people, for praying for our family. We pray for yours. And we're going to make it through. Things will get better. There's a new generation. The struggle continues. They'll pick up the mantle and do even greater things. So, and I appreciate you, Don. My father had enormous respect for you. He scrolls and was so happy of your activism in the spirit of Ida B. Wells. So thank you, Don, for what you're doing.
There is no rule. I've spoken to several people who have told me, who have been doing television for their entire lives, or also have legal knowledge of the laws and as it relates to, and the rules as it relates to television and equal time. And they're saying what Brendan Carr is saying here does not exist. It no longer applies. And here we are. Now, Prince Andrew, a former Prince Andrew, has been arrested, but not the connection to the women, but for sharing top secret information and how to do it. And it's, look, I believe it's going to be the midterm elections, obviously, but considering the way that they're going, the way that they have deployed the U.S. military against citizens of the United States and the people of America, including undocumented folks, the way that they have done that, I am concerned. It gives me, I don't believe that we will necessarily have a free and fair election in 2026. You know, as I'm looking at these images, Kurt, you know, we were living them real time, and don't get me wrong, they're still happening. And for some reason, not with the fanfare that they were. Maybe they're not tear gassing or gassing people or pepper spraying people as they were. I don't know. I'm not there. But as we sort of look back and we get a little bit of distance, it's not that much, right? It's still happening. When you look at these images, you go, why the hell did we stand for that? Like, what was that? Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are going to go to the polls with that in mind, regardless of, you know, because regardless of what the Trump folks are, if they're pulling out of Minnesota or not because of, you know, his, you know, tanking approval rating, approval numbers or poll numbers. The media is going to be playing this footage over and over. There are going to be candidates that are playing this over and over, and you know, what do you call PAC groups for campaigns that are going to be playing these images over and over, and people are going to be speaking out about, I was shot, I was dragged, I'm a citizen, I was put in custody. It's just not good. The thing that about McLaughlin that I wanted to talk to you is when she said in that soundbite, Wajahat, that we need to let the investigation play out, and the investigation will reveal this and it'll uncover and we'll get new information. But my question is, what investigation?
And what will it reveal? Listen, if you notice, you see this happening right now. I'll give you two examples. Peter Attia, Dr. Peter Attia, mentioned many times in the Epstein files. Peter Attia, for those who don't know, it's his doctor who was selling longevity, right? Yeah. His emails are disgusting in the Epstein files. I mean, just vile. He was hired or retained by, wait for it, CBS News and Barry Weiss. They still, there you go, Peter Attia. And by the way, I don't know if you saw, Don, as of yesterday, it was leaked that CBS News, despite the outrage over Peter Attia's very close ties to Epstein, the disgusting emails, the fact that he lied about his association, right? Guess what? CBS will retain Peter Attia. All right. Not Stephen Colbert. They'll retain Peter Attia, who also has lied about their extensive ties to Epstein, right? Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce, still in the White House, right? This man has lied repeatedly about his close ties. It's almost as, it was 2018, he was talking to Epstein, right? So this is a man who was neighbors with Epstein. They possibly did business Epstein. So this administration, if you notice, folks, their MO, they never ever say that they were wrong. They never apologize. They double down. It's the Roy Cohn method. Roy Cohn used to be Donald Trump's mentor, one of the most odious pieces of shit in history in the 20th century. And Roy Cohn, Donald Trump, you never ever apologize. You fight, you deflect, right? And so now you're seeing Barry Weiss has that same mindset. This Department of Justice has this mindset. I want to remind you all that Abrego Kilmar Garcia should have never, ever, ever been arrested, kidnapped, and sent to die in a foreign prison. Why? Because ICE itself said, the administration had said, oops, we removed this guy by mistake. So what they should have done in a normal administration, if I was in the Trump administration, yes, we didn't make a mistake, but someone lower than us made a mistake, we'll bring him back home. You know what they did, folks? For almost a year, they doubled down and they defamed this man, said he was a trafficker and this and that. So their MO, Don, never apologize his weakness, double down. Clearly, Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy are not domestic terrorists. Clearly, Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller effed up. Say that they're not domestic terrorists. But instead, what are they saying? Oh, we're still looking under that. And, there's still going to be an investigation. And like you said, investigation into what? Because what we know is you're investigating Renee Nicole Good's widow, which has prompted at least a dozen prosecutors to resign. They can't even keep the lie straight.
And now you have this happening to Tallarico on Colbert as Paramount's trying to woo not just Warner Brothers, but the president. And so as long as these companies just keep on gobbling up each other, as long as we don't break them up, to be really honest with you, each of those is going to give people like Brendan Carr, who is a sycophant, the hooks to get into our free press in this country, where, look, a lot of people watch your show. A lot of people are still on legacy media, and it's important they get access to a free press as well.
This is a report that we played earlier today on our morning show regarding Donald Trump's poll numbers. It's from CNN. And I just want to play this, and then I'm going to let you get back into what you're saying, because I think it's really important for folks to hear it before you answer. Here it is. Yes, no.
President Donald John Trump. Look at this. I got 4 numbers across for you on this screen here. They are all second-term lows for the given pollster. What are we talking about? AP Newark, 26 points below water. NBC, 22 points below water. Yahoo YouGov, 20 points below water. Quinnipiac, 19 points below water. So we're ranging from negative 19 points all the way to negative 26 points. Kate, there's this question that folks keep asking, where is the floor for Donald Trump? And I'm not sure there is a floor, because if there is one, Donald Trump, at least in term number 2, has just fallen through it to another low level.
How does this compare with his first term, and how does this compare with Joe Biden?
Okay, so we look at these numbers right here. One of the things that Donald Trump had been arguing, his proponents have been arguing, you know what, he's doing better than he was doing in term number 1. No longer is that the case. What are we talking about here? Okay, net approval rating at this point in the term. Look at this. 22 points below water on average when you average all the pollsters from the last slide. That is actually lower. That is lower than he was at this point in term number 1, when he was 17 points below water. So he's doing 5 points worse, and he's doing way worse than Joe Biden was doing at this point in his term number 1, when he was 13 points below water. So the bottom line is this: Donald Trump is setting new records for himself in term number 2, setting new records for himself compared to where he was at this point in term number 1, and he's doing worse than Joe Biden, which is, of course, the comparison that Donald Trump does not want to be, because we all know what happened to Joe Biden. His party lost the House in term number 1, that midterm elections, and of course, Joe Biden was not reelected to another term. At this point, the numbers are no bueno for the president of the United States.
Go, Tom.
Yeah, he's underwater on everything, and the problem, again, Donald Trump's a very simple creature. I mean, he probably thinks, I go to war, rally around the flag, everybody loves the president again. That he doesn't seem to be learning that's not true, that, his previous attempts to do that haven't really paid off or been lasting. But also his base, I mean, the people, and I said, yes, Eventually they'll come around, they'll grit their teeth because it's a cult of personality, and they'll support whatever he does. But they're going to hate it. This is the one thing he promised them, just a few things, because Donald Trump doesn't, he says a lot of things. He promised he'd release the Epstein files, and he promised no wars in the Middle East. And so I don't know how this works out for him unless we have, look, it's possible. We'd have some kind of smashing, amazing, 1 week victory. The Iranian regime falls, the mullahs, cry surrender, and, democracy takes root in Iran. I was one of the people who supported the Iraq war, and I'm chastened by that experience. So I don't think we ought to try it with a country vastly bigger than Iraq. But he may think that that'll happen, and there is some not zero chance that it could happen. But even the most competent administration would have to do this extremely carefully, and this isn't even close to a competent administration. So, is it wag the dog? Maybe. I mean, he has become so erratic lately. I mean, I say lately, erratic even by his standards, and I think that's saying something, because I think. Yeah. He really has reached the point where almost all of his public statements make no sense. He clearly is kind of lost most of the time that he's speaking off the cuff. And so this could be anything. It may be for glory. He may think he's going to eradicate their nuclear program. I don't know, but I can say this. When you go into a major conflict without a clear statement, either internally to your own people or externally, especially to the American public, whose children are going to have to fight this war, that's a bad plan, because then how do you know when you're done? How do you know what the point of this is?
Well, we all remember weapons of mass destruction and what happened because of that. And look, if we're going to go into a war, I would feel way more comfortable going into a war even with George W. Bush. But here's the thing. Donald Trump is not the person you want to, at least for me, and I think most Americans, that you want to be leading us into some sort of conflict like this, Dave, especially considering, the erratic nature of his personality and being.
And so as a person in the faith world, that's been my hope from day one. Every single person involved in this be held accountable to some extent. And I want it all to just surface, because as we talked about last night, you can't heal what you don't acknowledge. And until we get to a space where we see what we need to see, then just maybe we can begin to actually begin the healing process. And I am, Don, just like many Americans right now, set back that we are even in this moment in American history, let alone the world and what's happening right now. But I keep asking a lot of the questions that others are asking, like, how did we arrive here? Think about this. This is an administration that came in that ran on this truth. They said they're going to drain the swamp. And what I would like to say is, I guess they fulfilled their promise. They did indeed drain the swamp of any last ounce of integrity that it ever had.
First of all, a couple of things. Do you believe that he was some sort of foreign asset?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea. Jeffrey and I didn't socialize together for many years, although we were always in communication by phone and email. But, prior to his death, I didn't see him for 7 years. And that brings us back to 2012. And between 2004 to 2012, that 8-year period, maybe I saw him a half a dozen times.
So you don't know if he was some asset of a foreign government or some sort of intelligence agency or Mossad or anything like that?
I know he had lots of connections around the world, but I have no idea what he was doing.
She is saying, now, do you agree with her on the circumstances surrounding his death, about kneeling and the size of the shirt and all of that?
Well, the thing with it, for 4 years, we were trying to find out what position Jeffrey's body was in when it was found, because that's an important part of an investigation. We couldn't find that out. Okay. And that's also why the pathologist, wanted to see the crime scene and see what was happening and she was prevented. The way, finally, when the DOJ report came out a couple of years ago, they said that he was in a seated position with his legs extended in front of him, and he was hanging from the top bunk. And when they cut him down or tore him down, it's questionable what was actually done. They said his buttocks was an inch and a half off the ground, or an inch and a half off the ground. So that means, if you put your legs out and your buttocks is off the ground, the bulk of your body weight is hanging on your neck. It's also questionable if that thin strip of bedsheet could hold his weight.
Mm-hmm.
I actually purchased prison bed sheets from a supply company that supplies them, and I tested it, and it's questionable if it could hold Jeffrey's weight. Especially a lot of times, if a body is dying from strangulation, it convulses, it shakes around. I think that would have torn the sheet if he was hanging the way they said. Also, there was handheld video camera when the fire department EMTs got to the prison from the call. Jeffrey's body had already been moved to the infirmary, which is against all protocol. Because let me be clear: when Jeffrey was found, the autopsy showed that he was dead for at least 2 hours. Okay, and there's no argument to that. He was dead for at least 2 hours. So why did they move the body? It was a crime scene. They were supposed to call the medical examiner and let them come do their investigation. But when the EMT guys got there, he was already in the infirmary, and they told me that there was somebody there with a handheld video camera, which is also part of the prison protocol. There's supposed to be somebody there with a handheld video camera, taping everything, even into the hospital. There was somebody with a handheld video camera. Now, where's the tape? We can't get those tapes. We were not able to get the 911 call, which the fire department supposedly holds on for a couple of years. We were never able to get the 911 call. We've all heard the 911 call from the George Floyd case and other cases that have been, in the news. We weren't able to get Jeffrey's. Right.
Yeah. So let me jump in here for a second. I've asked you this question before. I'm going to ask you again. Who do you think did it?
Well, you get Bill Barr, who was the Attorney General of the United States, obviously, covering something up. And then also in the recent congressional testimony, you have Kash Patel, when he was questioned about it. He said, it's suicide when you see one. I actually laughed out loud when I heard that jackass say that, because how many suicides has he seen? And what makes him an expert? He's not a forensic pathologist. He's not a doctor. He's a joker. It's suicide when you see one. So he's like perpetuated this bullshit. Okay. So, who are they covering up for? Right? Where's the cover up?
That's what I'm asking you. Who are they covering up for?
Patel killed him, and I don't think Bill Barr killed him. So who are they protecting? That's the question.
But look, it's not just that, Oliver. It is also this Dr. Peter Attia thing, and who has Epstein connections. And I think there's another Epstein. Peter Rothpletz is my producer, is on, who can explain it. Peter, we were talking about this morning, and you were saying what as it relates to the whole MAGA, the whole Epsteinification and MAGAification of CBS and Barry White.
I have a number of sources inside CBS News who have expressed frustration with Barry's leadership for months now. Attia, for many of them, seems to be a breaking point. Oliver and Colby can speak to this in more detail than I can, but Attia was named nearly 2,000 times in the latest drop of the Epstein files. In fact, when his infant son was in the hospital, he refused to go visit his wife and instead took time to go see Jeffrey Epstein. Reportedly. Yeah. For those who are not familiar, he's sort of a wellness guru, particularly to wealthy elites. And Barry, for whatever reason, refuses to sever ties with him. One could argue this is just part of her longstanding brand of being a contrarian, wanting to not give in to the so-called woke mob. But this has really perturbed many within the Tiffany network who see this as just a bizarre move, especially given how beleaguered Barry has been in recent months.
So Peter, can you come on and explain your thing, and I'll explain mine?
Yes. So over the weekend, all of Twitter was obsessed with this little Japanese macaque that has been renamed Punch the Monkey. And poor Punch was abandoned by his mother. And so zookeepers gave him, since he was really born, this stuffed orange monkey. And he is now, for the last several months, just carried it around. And they've now put him in an enclosure with other macaques. And the other macaques wouldn't accept him. And so he just carries around this little stuffed monkey. And everyone was so heartbroken and sad and wanted to hug him and love him, because all of us feel that way at some point in our lives, right? And just last night, Little Punch was finally accepted into the troop, and look, this is an adult macaque giving him a hug. And it just, the entire internet was crying over this little guy all weekend. And he's so cute, and couldn't get enough.
Oh, I did not see this one because I'm not on the Twitter, but I am on the TikTok and the Instagram and the Threads. And this is the one. So Peter and I have dueling monkey videos. So I don't even know mine. I don't know where mine is. I just think he's cute and I've been following him. That one is very sweet. So this is mine. Have you guys seen this little monkey? Now this monkey, just so you know, one arm is gone. She's so cute. It's a she. And she is mostly nice. People think that she's trying to attack them, but not really. She's just trying to love on them. But then people always bring her food. Have you seen these videos? So people bring her food. I'm worried that she's going to get fat, but that if you look at her left arm is gone. She has one arm there. And so, but there it is. So people bring her food. Let's see. Is there music on here? Is that why it's no sound? Oh yeah, turn the music off. You don't want to get in trouble. Let's see. And then, so she loves to eat and people bring her food and she's just a sweetie pie. I don't know where she is. I haven't even looked it up that much, but I just think that she's really sweet. And I love that people bring her food and that they take care of her. I do worry that she's going to get fat. Look at her. Look at her. Look at her. Look at her. So that's her. And she's all over my timeline. Look at the smile. So cute. Oh my gosh. All right. Anyways, so that's it. Look, can you please share what you wrote last night to this audience? Because I thought it was so profound and it really moved people in the room. And it relates to everything that we're talking about today. Epstein, men and high profile men and women, the cover up. Can you read that?
Yeah, would love to. And just for context, so your people know, Don, when you were arrested, this was the day you were arrested. I sat down, like many of us, just grieving because, we saw the check boxes of authoritarian leadership, and journalists being arrested was one of those boxes. And my heart broke for you, but also just broke for our nation and where we're at and how we arrived at this space. And so I sat down, and one of the ways that I kind of work through my own grief is to write things out. And so this is what I wrote. Journalists arrested, protesters murdered, ballots seized, child sex trafficking exposed, communities terrorized, children detained, oligarchs censoring, democracy eroding. Every week, there's something new. Another crisis stacked on top of the last, another norm shattered before it can even be mourned. And I sit here bracing for the next shock. But what's more exhausting than the endless scandals is what never follows. No justice, no arrest, no consequences, no accountability. Instead, truth tellers are punished. Power is protected. Cruelty is excused. And the vulnerable pay the price. This doesn't just feel like tyranny. Some days it feels like inevitability. And I don't know about you, but I start to wonder, can this even be stopped? This is the upside down world we're being asked to accept. And this is exactly where they want you, living with an inability to imagine anything other than what is. But here's what I want you to know. The chaos isn't just a byproduct of incompetence. It is engineered disorder. Exhaustion isn't an accident. It's actually a strategy. Authoritarians don't just conquer land, they colonize our minds. They don't just control laws and armies, they capture our imagination. They don't just flood the zone, they occupy our eyes. They don't just seek power, they hijack our attention. Why? Because if people believe this is just how things are, they stop imagining how things could be. So they overwhelm us to disorient us. They disorient us to exhaust us. They exhaust us to immobilize us. And so it leads to this question, what do? Well, we keep showing up. We keep imagining a new world, and we work to implement that world. Authoritarians are frightened by the artists, the comedians, the educators, the pastors, the journalists, and the organizers, the ones who refuse to call their evil good and insist a new world is possible. So every morning, every news cycle, every election season, we become an inconvenient persistence, and we stay until denial gets tired, until comfort cracks, until the truth can no longer be ignored, until a world of justice, equality, and hope break through. And by doing so, we remind the world love cannot be exhausted, truth cannot be buried, memory cannot be erased. We will not disappear. A new world is possible, and I believe we are all ushering her in.
I'm just going to say something about that. I'm glad you mentioned it. And then I have to hop because I am interviewing our friend Katie Feng at 11 on my website.
Okay, yes.
But just really fast, I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Frieda, because in the context of the tariff stuff and like where's the money going and all that, yesterday when Trump was at that Board of Peace, Institute of Peace thing, that this sham that he put together, that he completely illegally took over and put his name on, the Institute of Peace, and he was, sleeping during the whole thing. It was absurd. But anyway, he pledged $10 billion to this thing. That number stood out to me because he's suing the IRS for $10 billion over the release of his tax returns, right? And everyone who has any sense of what's legal and what isn't is like, you can't, that doesn't happen. You can't sue the government as a sitting president. So that's basically the government paying you. It's another slush fund. How are you getting that money? Who's approving that? It's not legal. But the government's going to put $10 billion, which is also not legal without congressional approval, into this Institute of Peace bullshit. It's a slush fund. It's another way of them circumventing the normal ways of allocating federal government, our money, taxpayer money, to get into Donald Trump's pockets or into his son's businesses. Or someone put up at the observation that Howard Lutnick's sons have bought into the refunds on tariffs, anticipating that this ruling would come down. It's just such a criminal enterprise. It's vast. So yeah, there's that too.
So that was a week. Shifts in power, scrutiny on media and politics, questions about the future. Now we reset. We'll see you bright and early, 10 a.m. Eastern time, for Hot Topics on The Don Lemon Show on Monday. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a show. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern time, with new clips dropping at 2 p. and 8 p. And if you want even more Don Lemon Show content, join the Lemon community. Members get exclusive posts, behind-the-scenes videos, and live chats just for you. So hit the join button or visit our channel page to sign up. Thanks again for all your love and your support, and I'll see you next time.